Guys, the level of cognitive dissonance in the quote unquote black community is astounding, to say the very least. You have this generations of matriarchal control where, Nana just say, hey, you know what I meant? It's like you don't have to be very precise in what you say. You can fumble words. You're encouraged to fumble and mess up words. I mean, people wonder how mumble rap became a real thing. Well, you know what they meant. So, thusly, explaining yourself isn't particularly encouraged or cultivated in these spaces. And so, when you have someone such as Rush Limbaugh have a conversation with the Breakfast Club, who they say that they are the most dangerous television radio show in the nation, which they are because of the levels of cognitive dissonance. It becomes it makes for a rather interesting base to have a conversation off of. Now, I am not going to sit there and sit through all those levels of cognitive dissonance because I have them playing in the background and I always turn them off. Just, oh my goodness, where's the song at in the car? Because just, oh my, it is the levels of TDS and that, I'm a victim. Oh my goodness, we've been through so much and we still fighting all these years and we still fighting, while no one ever asked themselves the question, well, why is that? Why does it seem as if nothing's been done? I mean, I've asked that question. I've gone out and found the answer to that question. I mean, you can go check if you need an answer for that question, go check my other channel, Jay the Gentleman. There's plenty of content up there that explains exactly why and how, urban spaces, for the most part, ended up in the position that they are. So we are leaning on Matt Christiansen today to because his coverage on damn near everything is so measured and so balanced that I respect the hell out of this guy. So I'm going to leave a link to his channel in the description. But without further ado, let's get into this breakdown of what I consider I consider it just as important as Matt does, the refusal to be precise in the Breakfast Club's on the Breakfast Club's end of the conversation. Lego.
Argumentatively and persuasively. Rush didn't have to destroy the Breakfast Club. Their own inability to explain and defend their positions did that for him. It was first apparent on a few claims of fact. The Breakfast Club repeatedly claimed that George Floyd is not an isolated incident, that his case is part of a pattern of police targeting black people because of racism.
This is a country, America, that denies, black people justice and just plain decency, and then they act like we're just supposed to.
See, and that's the crazy part, because if Leonard here got into some BS, then I'm pretty sure he got the money to get himself out of some BS. So, like, they deny us decency. They didn't. Why you think everybody got freaked out, particularly, on the lighter skin side of things, freaked out over O.J. Simpson? Because it's like, yo, really? Really? Like, to pretend as if there have, like, or the example I really like to use is James Byrd. His killers were recently executed, and that was a big story as well. So to pretend as if the nation, right, is just this same cesspool of racism and butthurt and we're gonna go string them on up. Come on, let's go get us some tar and some chew, and we gonna find us a little nigger out there, and we gonna see him, we gonna lynch him. No, like, in pockets, I'm positive, but nationwide, I'm sorry, nah, it don't work like that anymore.
Be happy to be here. R.I.P. to George Floyd, but that was not an isolated incident. This is a regular occurrence.
Let me ask
for black people in this country.
George,
Here's the thing, though. It's a regular occurrence for all people in this country. Okay? I mean, you ain't gotta be black for the police to mess with you. It really is a socioeconomic thing more than anything else. Without question, it is a matter of class. It is a matter of the spaces that we've allowed to deteriorate, the type of people that are coming out of those spaces that we've allowed to deteriorate. And guess what? You can't look to a president for that. You have to look to the mayor. You have to look to the council reps. You have to look at, your freeholders or your aldermen or whatever it is at the local level that, makes these calls. They're the ones whose feet need to be held to the fire. But we have so many monarchies, like little mini monarchies in urban America, that they're never questioned. And the educational system does not lend itself to, the most astute voters ever. It's more along the lines of, hey, get out, run. Like what's every urban story, man? You got to make it out the hood, bruh. You got to make it out the hood.
Wasn't doing anything wrong. Breonna Taylor got killed in her house. She wasn't doing anything wrong. And so it's not that people haven't adapted to things. It's just that we get targeted and then there's no punishment when
they keep saying we, Angela Yee, you are, isn't she Asian or something like that? Like, come on, pass. See that whole people of color, black people, descendant thing? Like, nah, bro, there's levels and layers to this. You wildin', bro.
Police officers commit these crimes against us.
Well, first of all, there is punishment for police crimes, specifically the cases you reference. Derek Chauvin is in jail right now, and the cops in the Breonna Taylor case are under investigation, and charges remain possible. As to the...
And it wasn't just Chauvin that's locked up, because this video was actually done a day or two ago. They got all 4 of the officers and up the charges on Chauvin, which... I know Keith Ellison is the attorney general, but the deal is that the reason they went in for the lower charge, for the lesser charges, is because it's easier to prove. When you sit there and just slap on charges and like, yeah, we're going to sit here and we're going to try to get them in the chair and all this other stuff, you really set yourself up, because now the burden of proof is on the state. And this is tricky as is, man, particularly with the autopsy reports that's come out. So
claim that black people are targeted for lethal force from police more frequently because of racism, that is not conclusively true. It is true that black people are killed by police at a disproportionate rate, but it's an unsubstantiated leap to attribute that gap strictly to racism. There are other variables that are relevant and highly likely to explain, such as, importantly, violent crime rates. If you are committing more violent crime, you are also facing more contentious police encounters, and thus the likelihood for lethal force increases. And that is exactly what recent studies find. When you control for violent crime rates, police are not necessarily more likely to shoot minority suspects over white suspects. A 2019 study by Michigan State University researchers concludes, quote, "We find no evidence of anti-black or anti-Hispanic disparities across shootings, and white officers are not more likely to shoot minority civilians than non-white officers."
See why I mess with this guy? Like, you see why I really like Matt Christiansen? Dude, man, respect, brother, respect. But the deal is that, you've seen a lot of, you may have seen, I haven't done as many videos as I could on a lot of the wilder stuff that's taken place over the past week. But there's a lot of, melanated faces sitting there screaming, no, man, we're going wild out. Now, Black Lives, there have been plenty of people who have been out there shutting down the stuff, but there's been people of all shapes, stripes, and colors, including a lot of melanated ones, that have been out there completely just losing their mind and going nuts. Shoot, look at any of the looting footage. It's pretty, like, outside of the van store. I saw the Vans one. The Vans one, yeah, it was y'all, our lighter skinned compadres. But when it came to like the Nike store, every Nike store, bruh, like, family, no. Everybody gotta hold this L. God bless America. We all gotta hold this L. No matter who you are, no matter what you are, no matter what your color is, if you're khaki color, you're light skin, you're Spanish, it does not matter. We all gotta hold this L on this one, man, for real.
Race of the person shot is strongly predicted by race-specific crime rates. Similarly, a 2016 study from a Harvard researcher finds that controlling for crime rates as well as civilian behavior upon police confrontation explains a significant portion of racial disparities in police use of lethal force, ultimately concluding that when appropriate variables are controlled for, quote, we find no racial differences in police use of lethal force. Now, are these studies gospel? No, they are data-driven analyses with faults that have been scrutinized and criticized. They're not perfect, but they do give us reason to suppose that disproportionate use of lethal force from police can't automatically be attributed to police racism. There are other factors that are demonstrably relevant, factors that bring lethal force against white people just as much as they bring lethal force against black people.
So it's almost, if I can paraphrase Mr. Christiansen here, yeah, don't point a gun at the cops. If you're sitting there acting violently and you're wilding out, you're in the midst of committing a crime, or you're in the middle of a shootout, black, white, green, blue, purple, you're probably gonna get your ass popped. So no matter who you are, no matter what walk of life you're down, if you're going to go the criminal route, if you want to live the outlaw lifestyle, make sure it's outlaw, not criminal, and stay away from police, such as certain dashing rogues who have had their time, have spent a little time in the underworlds. I gotta say, if you stay the hell away from police, the chances of you being able to make it out, at least with your life, is far greater.
Speaking of similar lethal force against white people, another factor to consider is media selection bias. Which cases make the news and which cases don't? A consideration relevant when Charlemagne says what happened to George Floyd.
Leonard. His name is Leonard. Can we please stop calling him Charlemagne? Because this is the same person that thought Kamala Harris was going to be president. Seriously, come on, that right there. Like I said, all credibility gone.
Would never happen to a white man.
White privilege is that what happened to George Floyd would not have happened to a white man.
If what happened to George Floyd had happened to a white man, we probably wouldn't even have heard about it.
You definitely would have heard about it. You definitely would have been. You definitely would have heard about it.
You tell me.
You wouldn't hear about it, and you know why? Because that cop would have been arrested. He would have been fired. He would have been charged with murder a long time before all of this.
Yeah. Well, we don't actually have to speculate about such cases hypothetically. There are such cases. To Rush's point, have you ever heard the name Tony Timpa? He was a white man arrested and killed by police in Dallas in 2016 in a way strikingly similar to George Floyd. Police pinned him by the shoulders, knees, and neck to the ground. He pleaded with officers, screaming, "You're gonna kill me," and begging for mercy.
Help me!
Get on the ground.
No, you're gonna kill me. Please let me go, please.
And much like Floyd, there wasn't resistance from Tony Timpa. In fact, the police department reported no resistance in the state death report. Also, much like Floyd, he was dead when an ambulance arrived. But in a detail even beyond Floyd, the cops were making fun of Tony while he died.
He's asleep? He's asleep. Snoring, that's what it was. Yeah, he's asleep.
I want to go to school.
He oppressed too. His life should matter, right? I mean, look. No matter who or what you are, try to be decent first. Slap that up as a number one priority. Being decent. I mean, this is just as tragic as the Floyd footage, even more so, because we hear them, going back and forth. Guys, it doesn't, a life is life. A soul is a soul. And to pretend as if one should take priority over another is it's completely disingenuous to what many in the quote unquote Black Lives Matter or the Antifa, the communist cabal type community feel or what they proclaim, even though we know they fake as hell. But let's continue.
Today you can't be late. You're a bunch your new shoes for the first day of school. Come on.
Made breakfast, scrambled eggs, your favorite.
With waffles.
Waffles.
Now, like me, you probably never heard that story. And Rush argues that's because media have no appetite to report stories about police brutality against white people. The Breakfast Club argues you didn't hear that story because those cops would be immediately charged and jailed. Except they weren't. Charges against the cops were dropped, and their mockery of Tony Timpa was characterized as just a, quote, strategy to wake him up. The trouble is, though, any and all counter evidence is worthless in the Breakfast Club's argument.
And they get it from their mama. I'm sorry, but like I said, like the only thing that can truly subvert masculinity and logic and reason is the feminine and the ability to wrap the emotional up with the just wrap the emotional up in anything. You will lose focus. You will lose target. If you got a goal, my goodness, you're going to run in the opposite direction if she so desires that you do. No offense, ladies, but femininity really is your place. So, this is, the Breakfast Club and the culture that they, espouse, the culture that they represent, all the hip hop and everything else like that. I mean, whereas from an outsider's perspective, you might be like, well, man, there's so much homophobia, whatnot, what have you. No, not even. It's been a long time coming, but the alphabetical stuff has completely taken over. And it's like, bro, like, do you be free and all, but as far as what's pushed in the mainstream, those hands have never been quote unquote black, ever. And that's what the Breakfast Club represents. They don't particularly represent blackness. They represent a culture that really has little to nothing to do with blackness, but proclaims itself to be blackness, despite the fact that, we got tons of large Caucasian artists and Spanish artists. So it's like, bro, like to pretend as if, like this hasn't been a clear setup for a very long time, through the educational system, through the drug war, through the various means that have created the culture as it stands today, with quote unquote the hip hop culture that which the Breakfast Club represents, I feel like that's the one bit of perspective I can add to this entire argument. Let's keep the entire conversation and Matt's video.
Privilege and white supremacy are the unfalsifiable overlords under which we all live, and any argument otherwise is to be dismissed and mocked on its face. Rush tries to understand their case in good faith, asking them to define their terms. What is white privilege? What is white supremacy? We would like to know so we can stop it.
You keep harping on white privilege and racism. Would you tell me how to end it? What can we do to end this so that you are not frustrated and angry and feeling like whatever you feel like?
And you'll notice two things about their answers. First, they are so general and vague, there is no plausible response or action. It's just empty buzzwords. We have to dismantle systems and mechanisms that marginalize. That's just slightly advanced Joe Biden talk. The thing.
You had people electing the first African-American president in our history. He served for 8 years. Why isn't there anything to show for it that makes you less angry than you were then?
Doesn't matter who's in the White House if that person is not willing to dismantle the mechanism of white supremacy.
Come on.
Yeah, seriously, this is nonsense. It really is. It really is. And that's why Leonard is no leader. Okay? I'm sorry. Leonard ain't got it, bruh. He really don't. Neither does anybody that's collecting a check from Clearwater, Viacom, or any of these other, entertainer factories, because that's what they are. They are entertainers. They are not intellectuals. They have absolutely, their interest is in whatever their bosses tell them their interest is in. Has literally absolutely nothing to do with, seeking true answers and true ways around these problems. Because if you want to be legit about it, as a nation, we've already come insanely far. We really have. But because they want to pretend as if no, we're still living in 1962. Dude, that's just not it. It really isn't. but you can't get it through their minds because, you know, for the past however old they are, you know, it's all been nothing but cognitive dissonance. You are a victim. Oh my goodness, oh my lords, these folks is gonna do nothing but tear you down, man. Or what Rock say in Men's Society? Being a black man in America, it's not easy. The hunt is on, and you're the prey. You know what? I dug it for the time. I really did, but during that time, the mechanisms that have been in place and the game has been afoot. I'll put it to you like that.
Guys, elections don't matter now?
We got to stop acting like white supremacy isn't done by design. The whole function of systemic racism is to marginalize black people, and it's very...
Oh goodness, the whole function of racism is to marginalize black people. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Leonard. My name is Leonard. Deal is, Lenny. The deal is that it's really hard to argue that, like I said, not like I've always said, 900% increase in elected officials, quote unquote, of color since the signing of the Civil Rights Act. These communities, the areas that are the urban zones, have been placed in quote unquote black hands. And what do we have to show for it? Nothing. But you want to sit here and cry about a national, something national? Come on, guys. Miss me for real. And another thing, like I said, with them upping the burden of proof on Chauvin, I'm not feeling too great about a conviction there. I'm really not. Keith Ellison made his job harder on him. So guys, I think this is it. I think we're done here. Because like I said, it's nothing but cognitive dissonance. It's not like, no matter what, man, I was a victim. Even though I got millions of dollars in the bank and I make hella bread, I'm oppressed. It's like when Trevor Noah opens his mouth. Oh my goodness, well, you have to understand the oppressed. Or John Boyega. Well, you know, oh, we're so oppressed out here in London, mate. Like, come on, yo, miss me, fam. Miss me for days. Particularly those who made millions of dollars. Like, bro, go ahead, sit down. You're not oppressed. You've been able to reap rewards. How about you show some gratitude to those who came before you that put you in a position to be able to reap those rewards, as opposed to being like, oh, well, this country is just so racist and my goodness, white people, black people, blah, 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 blah. Who gives a shit? So guys, all that being said, all the internet stuff, if you liked it, toss it a like, dislike, go ahead, do that too. Nobody's scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice and want to get videos like this every single day. Share it because sharing is caring. And YouTube and Bitchute and like aren't the biggest fans of your boy over here for very obvious reasons. Bang the bell for notifications and speak. Let me know. What do you guys think in the comments? Seriously, I've been saying this about Leonard and that his little crew over there for like the longest. I hear them, you know, when I'm driving around to work and stuff, and it's just like, yo, it's nothing but gibberish. You give nothing of substance. It's nothing but, you know, whatever. If I were suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, I would love it. You know what I'm saying? Like I would eat it. I would eat it up. But I am a person that likes to think for myself. And so thusly is, nah, man, I cannot savor that flavor. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments, okay? And until the next one.